This tiny sea creature was thought to have gone extinct over 4 million years ago, but it isn't. A whale so rare it was only identified as its own species in 2003, was first filmed alive off Madagascar in 2015, and for almost 50 years a jellyfish species disappeared, until a tourist flipping rocks in Scotland snapped the first ever photos of it. These are sea creatures believed to be extinct, caught on camera. This first creature on the list is the Protolophila. Not exactly a household name, but that's probably because this thing was believed to have gone extinct not 100 years ago, not a couple thousand even. Scientists thought it went extinct about 4 million years ago. This tiny sea creature, related to corals and sea anemones, usually only shows up as little holes on the tubes of marine worms. Until recently, it was only known from fossils found in Europe and the Middle East, but when scientists in New Zealand dug up fossils of this thing that were supposedly from a time after the species had already disappeared, it got them curious enough to go back and check some tube worm samples they'd collected back in 2008, and it turns out Protolophila had been alive and well in New Zealand waters the whole time. They just hadn't noticed. As National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research scientist Dennis Gordon put it, it's one of those rare cases where studying fossils actually led to finding a species still alive today. Amura's whale is a ghost of the ocean, so rare that until 2015 scientists had never seen one alive. They were first confirmed as a separate species in 2003, based on DNA and physical differences from Bride's whales. But even then, they were known only from dead specimens. That all changed in October of 2015 though, when an international team of biologists filmed Amura's whales off the coast of Madagascar. They spotted 44 individuals and collected some samples, making it the first time this whale had ever been documented alive in the wild. Amura's whales are pretty small by whale standards, only about 32 to 39 feet long or 10 to 12 meters, and people often mistake them for Bride's whales. One of the coolest things about them is their asymmetrical lower jaw. White on the right side, dark on the left. Their fins are unique as well, which make them easier to tell apart if you're lucky enough to see one. Since that first footage, Amura's whales have popped up a handful of times, but sightings are still rare, and scientists still have a lot to learn about them. For almost 50 years, nobody had seen the Pastrum cyathiform, a rare stalked jellyfish that was last spotted in France back in 1976. Most experts figured it had gone extinct. But then Neil Roberts, just a tourist on an island off the coast of Scotland, flipped over a rock and found 4 of them. Roberts took some photos, but when he looked online, he noticed what he'd just photographed didn't really match any other photos. The only thing that looked close were old drawings. Turns out Neil had just taken the first ever photo of the species. Guy Freeman, editor of British Wildlife magazine, was amazed. When Neil first shared the photos, it was like seeing a ghost, Freeman said. Continuing, this thing had only ever existed in old drawings. It was suddenly there, in the flesh. This image was shared to X by the National Parks Board, who wrote, "The Neptune's cup sponge is the first animal described from Singapore. It was collected in Rafflesia's presence in 1819 and described by Thomas Hardwick, presumed to be extinct until its reappearance in the region. It was rediscovered here in 2011. So a bit more on this. Neptune's cup is a sea creature people thought was gone for good. By 1912 it was considered extinct because it had been overharvested. Then in 2011, divers off Thailand and Singapore found a handful of these things alive. Singapore moved some to a marine sanctuary to protect them, but the same sanctuary is full of fish like map puffers and copperband butterfly fish that love snacking on them. Not exactly ideal, but since 2017, more have been spotted off Cambodia. Unlike most sponges that attach to reefs, these guys just anchor themselves in the sand at the bottom of the ocean. Turns out they weren't extinct, they were just really good at hiding.
Fishermen claim she sings before a storm and her song pulls you under. Near the Samana Peninsula in the Dominican Republic, there are long-standing tales of a mysterious sea woman with glowing eyes and razor-sharp teeth. Unlike your typical mermaid myth, this siren is considered malevolent. Locals say she appears just before hurricanes, and her eerie singing can be heard echoing through the coral reefs. In 2017, a deep-sea hydrophone caught strange audio recordings that included what some describe as unearthly whale song crossed with a woman's voice. No marine species has yet been matched to the sound. Superstition? Maybe, but the fact that locals take her so seriously suggests something unexplained is going on. In Puerto Rico's famous bioluminescent bays, especially Mosquito Bay, kayakers and swimmers have occasionally reported strange underwater encounters. One 2021 incident involved a young man who surfaced screaming with 2 small puncture wounds on his calf. The wounds didn't really bleed and reportedly glowed faintly for hours after. Some speculate this may be the work of a rarely seen species of deep-sea lamprey, possibly adapted to warmer, shallower waters. Though no lamprey has officially been documented in the Caribbean, bite patterns on captured fish seem to match. It's also been rumored that Navy divers in the 1980s refused to enter the bay after dark. No explanation was ever given. 1 second it looks like a reef shark, then it vanishes into the sand. Off the coast of Barbados, marine researchers were tagging sharks in 2019 when they encountered a bizarre specimen. It looked like a Caribbean reef shark until it folded its body flat and disappeared under the seabed. Local divers have called it the sand devil, and some say it's capable of camouflaging itself so perfectly that it becomes invisible. The best guess? A genetically divergent type of angel shark, which are extremely rare and usually found in the Pacific. If that's the case, this creature may have migrated or evolved independently. Either way, its aggressive stalking behavior has led several dive instructors to blacklist the area for beginner divers. It leaves behind trails of scorched seaweed and a burning smell underwater. Fishermen near Cuba's southern coast, especially around the Isle of Youth, have reported sightings of a massive snake-like creature that glows orange beneath the water. It's known locally as the burning serpent. In 2005, a research vessel actually recorded a heat signature on sonar matching the exact path described by local boaters. It left behind disturbed seabeds and what looked like burned vegetation. Some marine biologists suggest this may be a rare thermal vent-dwelling eel species, possibly excreting heated mucus or using bioelectrical discharge. No one's gotten close enough to confirm. One diver who tried apparently disappeared without a trace. Its pincers are rumored to slice through steel, and it hunts at night. In the deep reefs of Turks and Caicos, deep-sea crab traps have been coming up mangled or completely destroyed. In 2018, an NOAA research team found claw marks embedded in their steel retrieval gear. They also recorded sonar images of a crustacean estimated to be over 4 feet wide. It's been nicknamed the Reaper crab, and locals believe it's responsible for missing divers and vanished underwater drones. Though no specimen has been captured, comparisons have been made to the Japanese spider crab, but with a much thicker exoskeleton and higher aggression. Whatever it is, it doesn't like to be watched. It floats just beneath the surface, completely invisible, until it stings. In 2020, swimmers near St. Thomas reported painful burning stings despite no visible jellyfish in the water. One biologist took a water sample and found nearly invisible tentacles belonging to an unidentified species. Later dubbed Spectra medusa, this jellyfish seems to reflect and bend light to become nearly undetectable. Worse, its venom is unusually potent, causing paralysis in small fish and excruciating nerve pain in humans. One theory is that this creature may be a mutated version of the box jellyfish pushed into the Caribbean waters by shifting ocean currents. It's now one of the main reasons tourists are warned not to swim at night in that region. It started with a scream and ended with missing divers. In 2003, a diving expedition off the coast of Port Royal, Jamaica, encountered something terrifying. 2 divers entered the water to explore a deep reef trench, but only one came back. The survivor claimed they were ambushed by a massive, shadowy figure with writhing arms and eyes, quote, the size of dinner plates. Though unconfirmed, experts believe this may have been a Caribbean specimen of the elusive giant squid. These creatures can grow up to 40 feet long, and while usually deep sea dwellers, warming waters may be pushing them closer to the surface. Aggression towards humans is rare, but not impossible. divers have reported being pulled violently into underwater caves and never seen again. In the blue holes of the Bahamas, especially around Andros Island, locals whisper about a sea monster called the Lusca. Described as half shark, half octopus, this creature is blamed for a number of disappearances near underwater cave systems. Some scientists believe the Lusca legend might be rooted in sightings of unusually large octopuses, possibly the giant octopus, a cryptid some believe to be real. Even National Geographic has covered unexplained injuries and suction scars on local marine life. Whether it's an undiscovered predator or just a terrifyingly aggressive octopus, something dangerous seems to dwell in those deep water pockets. Its barbed tail has been blamed for deaths dating back to the 1700s. Off the coast of Guadalupe, local fishermen have long feared a giant black stingray called the she-devil of the sea. According to oral tradition, this stingray is over 10 feet wide and uses its serrated tail to attack boats. In 1996, a tourist diving group encountered a ray estimated at over 14 feet across. One diver was slashed by its tail and suffered deep lacerations, though he survived. Marine biologists have noticed that Caribbean stingrays are often larger and more aggressive than their Pacific cousins. Whether it's a mutation or a relic species, many locals still refuse to swim near certain ocean coves. They say its eyes shine blacker than the abyss and it follows boats for miles. In the depths of the Cayman Trench, one of the deepest parts of the Caribbean Sea, submersibles have recorded footage of a terrifying, elongated eel-like creature with jet black eyes and a translucent body. First reported in 2012, this creature was spotted at over 20,000 feet below sea level, and it moved in ways that defied known eel locomotion. Eel locomotion is a phrase I never thought I would say. Researchers dubbed it Leviathanus, though it's yet to be classified. Its bioluminescence patterns were erratic and eerie, pulsing in red, not blue, which is unusual for deep-sea species. Some cryptozoologists speculate this could be a type of prehistoric gulper eel that never went extinct.
Sometimes marine life doesn't really care and will in fact attack your equipment. An extremely rare bioluminescence deep sea squid, known as the Dane octopus squid, was caught going in for a researcher's camera thinking it was food. The footage was caught with only being below by 1 kilometer down, and all that the crew was really aiming for was to observe the biodiversity of the seafloor. This squid is one of the largest known deep sea squids, with this specific one being 75 centimeters long, just under a meter, but can grow up to 7 feet in length. One of the scientists stated, "Descended on our camera assuming it was prey and tried to startle it with its huge bioluminescence headlights. It then proceeded to wrap its arms around one of our other cameras, which in turn captured the encounter in even greater detail. I think we were very lucky to have witnessed this." This squid is not only popular for its size, but rather the photophores it produces, making it the largest light source known to be in the sea as of right now. Truly beautiful, yet terrifying at the same time. This video was taken in the Gulf of Mexico with an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle that most underwater explorers used when they're exploring the deep blue sea. It's a little grainy, but we can still make out some sort of jellyfish-like creature making a very creepy appearance. I'm not sure what the researchers were doing in this video with the box, but as they pull away, some crazy looking tentacle creature makes its way over to it in a rather aggressive manner. If it is a jellyfish, it's definitely not one I've ever seen before. Its body is circular from one angle, but as it rotates we see that it's actually completely flat rather than spherical. Going through the comments, people seem to agree that it's what's known as a clinging jellyfish, and are usually found in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. We don't have to worry about seeing them at beaches though, since they prefer a more calm and solitude environment. The internet is going crazy trying to decipher what type of jellyfish this is. Majority are saying that this is a comb jellyfish, but its odd shape at the beginning, looking very alien-like, has people fighting one another in the comments section. But as I further read into comb jellyfish, they might just be correct. Some are known to have round bellies and even tentacles like the one in this video has, but also makes them a part of a different family than the average jellyfish. They get their names because they use these things called cilia, which are little hair extensions on their body that help them swim, and also give the appearance of a brush and comb. It's really hard to see it in the one on this video, especially with with its deep black color. But we do get a moment of the cone jelly lighting up in a rainbow effect, which the cilias, along with its body, are producing. They do this when they are obviously threatened. I mean, I would too if I had a giant submarine camera in my face. In the end of this video, people also argued if it was accidentally torn to shreds or it produced its own ink. I believe the latter because this species of jellyfish can ink as well. A weird crossbreed of jellyfish and squid. These freaky little guys are found all over the world, ranging from the tropics all the way to the poles, but surprisingly not in fresh water. The deep sea lizardfish, one of the world's deepest living apex predators. These guys are ruthless because not only will they just eat about anything, they won't hesitate to nibble on someone they know. They are also hermaphrodites, having both male and female parts, to which scientists are speculating that it's because of their low population. However, when they do breed, they seem to have a maximum cap at how many they will produce, keeping just enough to have the species thrive, but not over the top to where finding food becomes an issue. Interesting. There really isn't that much known about these fish, as they just typically like to hang around on the ocean floors, going as far deep as 3,500 meters. They will literally just sit on the ocean floor as they wait for their prey to come by, trapping them with multiple rows of extremely sharp and long needle-like teeth. Maybe it's because this video was taken in 1998, but the eerie blue lighting does not help its case, making it all the more terrifying as its glowing eyes glare right back at you. The goblin shark, also nicknamed the most unhinged, ugliest creature to ever exist. Sorry, that was personal. These crazy looking things are found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, but the most common sightings are off the coast of Japan. One cool thing about them is that they are living fossils from over 100 million years ago. They come from the family Mitsukurinidae and are the only living representative that comes from that ancient lineage. They also have some pink coloring on them due to their translucent skin, making their blood the reason why they give off such a pretty color. And much like humans and our eyes, they grow into their noses, so they are born with quite the big honker until they reach adulthood. The reason why they're on this list though is because of how they eat. When they come up to their prey, their jaw literally unhinges and launches forward, its skin stretching as it reaches out to eat its meal. Thankfully though, these are found deep below the surface, as deep as 4,300 feet, one even being recorded at exactly 4,490 feet below. The adults usually like to hang far below more than the younger generation. The siphonophore is a crazy piece of work to which some of them can grow the length of a blue whale. They take the cake for the largest creature on Earth and can reach up to 150 feet in length. With a total of 175 species of this kind, they are scattered through all the Earth's oceans. But that doesn't mean you'll find any species in any part. Some are found in the waters of Portugal, nicknamed the man o' war for how venomous it is. Despite this alien-looking thing looking like a singular animal, it's actually a colony of individual organisms called zooids. Each zooid has their own specific function for survival, but are genetically identical to each other. Some will focus on feeding and digesting, while others focus on movement, swimming, or reproducing. Since zooids cannot survive on their own as a singular, they band together and depend on each other's help as they form a body. How this works is that a first singular zooid is hatched from a fertilized egg, and then once it develops its growth hormones, it then begins to create more zooids with itself. Nasty, wicked cool. These three submarine divers got a lovely surprise from a visit of a deep sea female shark. This video is more phenomenal than scary, as it starts out with the shark rolling around on the ocean floor, causing an immense amount of debris to fly around the submarine. When she emerges from this though, they get an amazing shot of her going over with prey in her mouth, really showcasing how large this girl is. Everyone in the submarine is just in awe, rightfully so. She then starts to take a huge interest in the machine, coming up closer again as she observes the submarine, checking out some of the gadgets it has, even trying to nibble at some of them. My favorite shot from this video, however, is when they get a clear image of her eye. How many of you can say you've made eye contact with a a shark. It even rolls to the back of her head as she swims away. This lovely lady is known as the blunt-nosed six-gill shark, or the cow shark if you want to be mean about it. They are, sadly, listed as near threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature because they are often exploited as a sport fish due to their popularity. The vampire squid. No, sorry, it doesn't drink the blood of its prey, but rather it was given the name because of its lovely dark red or jet black color. You can find these little guys anywhere in the tropical oceans and temperate waters, if you're willing to travel down 2,000 or 3,000 feet below. Despite only being able to grow up to 12 inches in length, these guys can projectile themselves the length of 2 bodies per second by spraying a jet of water through their mantle. They were first discovered by Carl Chun in 1903, who had an ambition to prove there was sea life past 550 meters below. If only he were here today. They have 8 arms that are connected by webbing, and are able to regenerate if they get into a bit of a scuffle with other sea life. Half of these 8 arms are covered in suckers, and also have small hairs on these legs as well, to help detect their prey. It has to wait for food to come out, since it sadly doesn't have feeding tentacles like other cephalopods, but thankfully only needs to eat twice a week. Their eyes are also considered to be the largest in comparison to their body size of any animal in the world.
This is a really cool piece of footage. Just what is this creature attacking this submersible? The footage was taken at a depth of around 1,280 meters or 4,200 feet. Something had clearly tried to latch onto the vehicle. As for what it is, well, we get a better look moments later. What you're looking at here is a flasher squid. Not much of a mystery why it's called a flasher squid. They have 2 photophores at the tips of their heads that flash. These are one of the largest squids in the world and are among the biggest known bioluminescent creatures on Earth, reaching lengths of up to 7.5 feet or 2.3 meters. They're very rarely spotted, which just makes this footage even more incredible. This deep sea diver was bitten by a shark, but an unlikely ally came to his rescue. Take a look. Here we see a shark latched onto this dude's leg. Now, luckily it's a very small shark, but I don't think there's any such thing as a good or even okay shark attack. Nobody wants this. Attached to the small shark though is a grouper, much bigger than the shark. Was the grouper just glad to find an easy meal? Yeah, but I'd like to believe that it saw an innocent man being attacked and swooped in to help. Then we watch as it pulls the shark off the diver and swims into the shadows to enjoy its meal. Now this is an absolute beast of a creature. This is a blunt-nosed 6-gill shark captured on video in 2019, but if I didn't know any better, based on that tail, I'd think it was the Loch Ness Monster. So OceanX, in partnership with Cape Eleuthera Institute and a team of scientists, managed to make history by tagging a deep-sea shark from a submarine for the very first time. They were after a pretty elusive creature, the blunt-nosed 6-gill shark. This shark is ancient, really ancient. It's been around longer than most dinosaurs. The lead scientist on the mission was Dr. Dean Grubbs from the Florida State University's Marine Lab. He's been working on studying these sharks for years, but until now, the only way to tag one was by bringing it up to the surface. Not exactly the most ideal way to track an animal that spends its life in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. But this time, they did something no one had done before. They managed to tag the creature while it was still deep underwater using a submarine. It's a huge step forward in studying these deep-sea predators, and now they have a way to track their movements without disturbing their environment too much. Pretty amazing and an absolutely wild piece of footage. What you're looking at here is not the tripod alien from War of the Worlds. This is a Magnapina squid, or a big fin squid, captured in the Central Pacific Ocean back in 2019 at a depth of 1,092 meters or 3,582 feet, courtesy of the Schmidt Ocean Institute. Big fin squids are just nuts looking. As you can see, its arms and tentacles are way longer than its body. They can stretch out 13 to 26 feet or 4 to 8 meters. These things also move in a really weird way. It doesn't really swim like other squids, darting through the water with speed. Instead, it sort of floats along with its arms stretched out, almost like it's just hovering or gliding. And since it lives so far down, way deeper than most submarines can reach, these creatures are hard to study. That's why not much is known about them. But whenever it's caught on camera, it always leaves people a little freaked out. It's not just the long arms, it's the way it moves and just how generally alien it looks. books. Alright, now this creature wasn't filmed by a submarine, but it was just too creepy looking not to show. So apparently this horrid looking monster is called a purple eel gobby. Now at first I thought this was a creature with multiple heads, which would have been awesome. That is not the case though, sadly. This is just a group of them gathered together. Still though, these things look like they crawled out of the upside down. They also look like they'd crawl into your body and eat you from the inside, but luckily they're more interested in small fish and crustaceans. What are we looking at here? When I first saw this thumbnail, I thought this was a fishing net, but no, this is some kind of living organism. This incredible piece of footage was shared by Tahoe Deep on YouTube. The creature is some kind of siphonophore, a class of marine animals that contains 175 species that we know of anyway. As for exactly what species this one is, we're not sure. From what I've seen, siphonophores can look vastly different between species. What we do know is that this video was captured in the Gulf of Mexico, about 4,000 feet deep, or just over 1,219 meters deep. I've never seen a creature like this in my life. It reminds me of one of those old school iTunes visualizers or like Windows screensavers where you'd have like a trippy animation going on, kinda. A very odd, obscure reference, but I'm sure some of you will get it. Sperm whales and giant squids, some of the largest animals in the ocean. Footage of either is incredible to see, but how about the aftermath of a battle between the two? This footage was shared by EcoWatch Discovery Mauritius. As you can clearly see, a group of whales are coming back from a hunt, and one of them has the remains of a giant squid in its mouth. Getting up closer, you can see that its tentacle is still wrapped around the whale. It's pretty incredible footage. It's rare to see video of giant squids at all, let alone one in the mouth of a massive sized sperm whale. Turns out these animals fight a lot. They're both huge predators that are often locked in battles for survival. Based on this footage, I'd be placing my bets on these sperm whales. At our number 3 spot, we have the Mariana Trench Meg. Now this video is very much genuine, and I just find it really creepy. The idea of being lost deep beneath the sea and having this nasty thing creep up on you is pretty spine-tingling. This footage here was shared to YouTube by Deep Sea Oddities. It shows footage taken by equipment from a Japanese marine biology study about a mile underwater in the Mariana Trench. We see a really creepy looking shark swim into frame. It almost looks like a zombie shark or something to me. Nothing cute about this guy. I just kind of cringe watching the footage actually. It just gets too close to the camera for comfort, you know? Now apparently that's a baited cage in the frame there that it's swimming up to, which makes this shark pretty damn large. It doesn't look like it's been missing any meals. All I can say is I'm glad we don't live in the world of SeaQuest. Bet you weren't expecting to see a SeaQuest reference on this video. Now it turns out this creepy looking creature is actually called a Greenland shark. Here's another footage of a Greenland shark. Definitely an eerie looking animal, but incredibly fascinating. First off, these things are huge. One of the largest sharks in the ocean. They can grow up to about 21 feet or 6.4 meters long, sometimes more, and they can weigh over 2,200 pounds. Already terrifying. But here's the part that totally blows my mind. These sharks can live incredibly long. In fact, they're the longest living known vertebrate on Earth, with a lifespan of 250 to 500 years. That means there could be a Greenland shark out there right now that was alive well before the United States was founded. As for what they eat, they're apex predators. They hunt fish, seals, and basically whatever they can find. They live in some seriously deep water, around 650 to 3,000 feet down, and sometimes even deeper. So they've been difficult animals to study and are rarely ever seen. Take a look at this strange object flying by the camera. Just what the hell was that? This is a very strange video. It was captured by a remotely operated vehicle back in 2002 off the coast of Senriku, Japan. The thing passes by way too fast to determine what it is. It's not even clear if this is a living creature or some kind of object. What we're looking at here could be a USO, an unidentified submerged object. It's sleek looking, almost like a disc, and it's incredibly bright, so much that you can't make out any detail on it, if there even is any at all. So could this just be a ray of light? Well, it doesn't appear to be, for one. I mean, it does look like a solid object or organism. Plus, this footage was taken 421 meters down, or just over 1,381 feet. Not super deep, but enough that some ray of light from above wouldn't penetrate the water like this. According to the NOAA, or the National Oceanic oceanic and atmospheric administration, light may be detected as far as 1,000 meters down in the ocean, but there is rarely any significant light beyond 200 meters. So, was this just a very fast fish or something else entirely? How's this for an animal name? The night-armored catfish. Pretty cool, but does it live up to its name? Well, this is one right here. Divers in northern Brazil were exploring the Xingju River, hoping to find some Asaku preto, a thorny black fish often sold in the aquarium trade. Well, it turns out these fish hadn't been documented by science yet. After teaming up with local fishermen and digging through museum collections, scientists realized that this was a brand new species which they named Pseudacanthicus nyctos, or the night-armored catfish. These fish can grow up to 10 inches long and have completely black eyes, forked teeth, and their bodies are covered in armor-like plates and thorny spikes. Living in the murky depths of the river, they're usually found around submerged logs, sometimes as deep as 65 feet. As you could probably tell, they're carnivores, feeding on small aquatic animals. They're also very territorial. The males can get very aggressive, especially when sharing space with other males. Off the coast of Belize, anglers unknowingly caught a new species of shark between 2016 and 2019. First they thought they'd just landed another hammerhead, but something about the shark's unique shovel-shaped heads made scientists take a closer look. And after analyzing the shark's body shape, skeleton, and DNA, researchers realized these were part of a completely new species, the shovelbill shark. These small sharks, measuring up to 3 feet 4 inches long, have these very unique, flat, shovel-looking heads. They're found in coastal waters, estuaries, coral reefs, and seagrass beds from Belize all the way to Brazil. They're often caught by anglers, and experts warn that they may already be highly threatened. As co-author of the study, Damian Chapman said, "It is tragic that we have only just recognized that this species exists, and we are already running against the clock to prevent its extinction." Yeah, that is very sad, especially because these sharks are kind of cute, you know? Off the coast of Saudi Arabia, researchers exploring coral reefs discovered this tiny, really upset-looking fish, and honestly, I think if I looked like this, I would also be in a pretty bad mood all the time. While diving in the Red Sea, they released clove oil into an underwater cave to sedate the fish inside, and a small dark red goby floated to the surface. At first, they weren't sure what species it was, and after several sightings and a few more catches, they figured out why. This was not a species they'd ever seen before. This little fish, only about half an inch long, had a severely curved mouth that gave it this sort of grumpy look. Researchers named it the grumpy dwarf goby because of this permanently unhappy looking facial expression. The fish is incredibly rare, with only 10 specimens found during extensive collections along the Saudi Arabian coast, said the researchers. They live in small caves, rocky overhangs, or crevices about 32 to 100 feet below the surface. Again, in the caves of southern China, researchers discovered a fish which they'd named Liu's cave loach, a new species swimming through heavily polluted water. The creatures caught the attention of scientists visiting the area in 2023. Spelled out for you here is their scientific name, but again, they're also called Liu's cave loach for short. They can grow up to 2.5 inches long. They have elongated bodies covered in tiny scales with bright yellow fins. Their snouts are lined with whiskers, almost like a catfish, and their eyes have a yellowish hue. They live in underground rivers and cave pools, but don't show the usual traits of cave-dwelling species. They were also found breeding in a cave pond, despite the water being heavily polluted from nearby sugar factories and duck farms. So far, Liu's cave loaches have only been found in the caves of Yifeng District, Guangxi, a province in southern China near the Vietnam border. Deep beneath the surface of the ocean, researchers have discovered 3 brand new species of sea stars living in some of the most remote and bizarre environments on Earth. The sea stars were found thousands of feet below the surface at methane seeps in underwater valleys using remote-controlled vehicles during surveys between 2003 and 2018. One of the new species showing up on screen in text right now because I don't have a week to learn how to pronounce that. Anyway, it was discovered off the coast of Costa Rica about 3,200 feet down, with flower-like patterns of small plates on its back. These creatures move along the seafloor using tube feet that extend down each arm. Another species, Hymonostella davidalani, also found in Costa Rica, looks similar but has thorny, elongated spines along the edge of its body. The third species, Camouflaged lorisae, has short spines covered in thick skin, and interestingly, all mature specimens looked identical. These deep sea stars seem to live around stuff that sinks to the bottom of the ocean, like sunken wood, which gives them shelter and food. And researchers still aren't sure if the sea stars eat only the wood or if they have other food sources down there. Well, this is exciting. This news just came out the other day. In the waters off the Solomon Islands, there is a sea creature so massive it could be seen from space. In fact, it's one of the largest living organisms on Earth, a colossal coral colony. Discovered by a team of researchers and filmmakers, this coral is roughly the size of 2 basketball courts. Unlike most coral reefs, which are made up of different colonies, this one is an individual organism made up of millions of tiny animals called polyps. The species is Pavona clavus, and its size and slow growth suggests it's been around for centuries. Underwater photographer Manu San Felix, who first saw it last month, was in awe, saying, quote, "It's a dream to see something unique like this. When Napoleon was alive, this thing was here," end quote. Before this discovery, the largest known coral was in American Samoa, measuring about 22 meters wide, but as marine conservation expert Stacy Jupiter points out, humans have only surveyed about 5% of the planet's marine realm. That means there could still be larger corals hidden out in uncharted waters. What you're looking at here is a newly discovered creature. Again, news about this one just came out the other day. In the Monterey Canyon off California, marine biologist Bruce Robison made a discovery back in 2000. While exploring with robotic vehicles, he came across a strange gelatinous blob with a giant hood, finger-like projections, and colorful internal organs. Fast forward nearly 25 years, and Robison, along with colleague Stephen Haddock, which is a great name for someone who studies fish, they have finally solved the mystery. They've identified this bizarre creature as a brand new type of nudibranch, or sea slug. Now, unlike other sea slugs that crawl along the ocean floor though, this one floats. Looks a lot more like a jellyfish. Even more astonishing, this new nudibranch can jet backward by expelling water from its hood. The hood, as it turns out, is like a Venus flytrap, capable of expanding and contracting to trap its prey. The creature is also bioluminescent and has both male and female reproductive organs. A pretty fascinating little creature. These are recently discovered octopus species. Roughly 2 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean near Costa Rica, scientists found 4 brand new species of octopus during expeditions in June and December of last year. It all started when researchers spotted pink octopus hatchlings coming out from their eggs at a place known as El Dorado Hill. Jorge Cortez Nunez, a researcher from the University of Costa Rica, said it was unexpected to find so many species of octopus in a small area, first, and second, at 3,000 meters depth. In June, researchers using a remotely operated vehicle named Sebastian found 2 octopus nurseries around hydrothermal springs on the sea floor. They discovered that these octopuses seemed to prefer the warm waters from the vents, which helps shorten their long incubation period. The warm water gives the eggs a better chance of surviving in the cold, dark depths. One of the new species was even given an unofficial nickname, the Dorado octopus, after the spot where it was found. The species has short arms and small eyes, similar to the pearl octopus found off California. The other species had bigger eyes and longer arms. The 4th species is especially mysterious, with bumpy pale skin and a strange row of suckers on each arm. In total, about 310 deep-sea octopus specimens were collected. What you're looking at here is a recently discovered species of fish in China. You'll notice that it doesn't have eyes. They kind of look like raw chicken cutlets or something else that I can't really describe on here. And those dark patches that you see, those are its internal organs. Deep in an underground river in southern China, scientists found these blind pink fish with no eyes. They were swimming in the dark depths of a cave system in Guangxi when researchers first encountered them during surveys between 2019 and 2024. They were on the hunt for Chinese karst loaches, but quickly realized that this fish didn't match any known species. After studying it, the team confirmed that they had discovered a new species. This is the overly complicated scientific name on screen now, so I'll use the nickname Dachshund Chinese karst loach. These tiny fish are only about an inch long and have elongated bodies with no scales. They also have wide heads, narrow mouths, and whisker-like thingies on their heads, but again, no eyes. Researchers believe this species, like others in the area, lives in deep caves with underground rivers and is rarely seen by people. In November of last year, anglers off the coast of Pakistan reeled in a strange catch, a quote, torpedo-shaped predator with teeth on its tongue. At first they thought it was a regular fish, but researchers Sherkhan Panwara and Imtiaz Kashani soon realized they'd actually found something new. And after examining these fish in the lab, they discovered not one, but two new species. The first was Brachycentron blotchy, or the blotchy cobia. These predators are about 3 feet long, weigh around 8 pounds, and have small eyes, pointed snouts, and tiny teeth on their jaws, the roof of their mouths, and yes, even their tongues. Inside their stomachs, they found a mix of small fish, crustaceans, and cephalopods. Second species, Brachycentron marquiensis, or the macron cobia, is smaller, about 2.5 feet long, and weighs about 6 pounds. It has a short, pointed head, small teeth, and a greenish coloring with a gray band running along its side. Its stomach contained mostly digested material and some crab parts. While sailing the waters of the Bermuda Triangle, you may just hear the eerie high-pitched calls of a rare and endangered bird called the Bermuda petrel, also known as the cacao. Now, as you can see, this is a pretty adorable animal, but aside from being cute, there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with these things. First of all, these are endangered birds, so endangered that for years it was thought to actually be extinct, until it was rediscovered in 1951, nesting on a tiny remote island in the Bermuda Triangle. And then there's the cacao haunting, high-pitched calls that echo over the water. To some, they sound almost ghostly as they reverberate. Their white feathers also give them a bit of a ghost-like appearance as they soar through the air. For this reason, they're sometimes referred to as the ghost bird. Frilled sharks are what are known as living fossils. It's one of the creepiest, most ancient-looking creatures to ever lurk in the deep. These things have long eel-like bodies and sharp needle-like teeth arranged in rows. It's been around for millions of years, and its appearance has barely changed since the time of the dinosaurs. This is why they're known as living fossils. And when you see one, it's easy to understand why it looks like it could have been designed to haunt the darkest corners of the ocean. With its long, tooth-filled mouth, a frilled shark can grab onto prey with this eerie, snake-like motion. It's not a fast swimmer really, but it lurks in the deep and then ambushes fish and squid. Scorpion fish can be found throughout the Indo-Pacific. This is actually a family of fish containing many different species, like the stonefish and lionfish. First off, let's talk about the stonefish. This one is a real nightmare if you're walking around barefoot in the shallow water. These fish are masters of camouflage. They look like, nothing more than a rock or a pile of seaweed, blending perfectly with the ocean floor, but if you accidentally step on one, you're in trouble. The spines on its back inject potent venom that can cause excruciating pain and even paralyze you. In some cases, it can be deadly if you're not treated quickly enough. Then there's the lionfish, which is a pretty cool looking animal, terrifying in its own way though, and it's even worse if you get near it. This fish has long spiny fins that look like razor sharp daggers protruding out of their bodies. It's not really an aggressive fish, but if you get too close, again, its spines can inject a painful venom. Look how strange this creature looks when it eats. This is a goblin shark, pretty apt name. Goblin sharks have these long, flattened snouts that look, to put it bluntly, pretty ugly. The other cool thing about them though is that, as you just saw, their skin is almost translucent. But the real horror comes from its extendable jaw. The goblin shark's jaw can literally shoot forward to snatch prey like some freaky mechanical contraption, grabbing onto whatever fish or squid it's after. Pretty disturbing stuff. Now, luckily these are deep sea dwellers, typically found in waters between 200 and 1,200 feet deep, so it's not something you're likely going to bump into while snorkeling. Now, we talked about the creepy looking big fin squid at the top of the video, so seems fitting to close out with another type of squid, the giant squid. A seldom seen creature lurking in the depths of the ocean, once thought of as a mythical creature. The giant squid is one of the most incredible creatures ever discovered. It can grow up to 40 feet long, possibly even bigger, making it one of the largest invertebrates on Earth. Tentacles that could wrap around your boat like a snake, massive suction cups that could hold on to anything that gets too close. Basically, they're the real-life versions of the kraken. These creatures rarely come up to the surface though, only venturing into shallower waters occasionally, so they're not the easiest animal to study, which is why they were placed in the realm of myth and legend for such a long time. For centuries, sailors and fishermen would tell tales of sea monsters, stories of enormous tentacled beasts dragging ships under the waves, and it's very possible that at least some of these stories were based on real encounters with the giant squid. This does not look like something from this planet. That is one creepy looking creature. Not only does it have this incredibly strange looking head, but the length of those tentacles, it just doesn't look real. But it is. Now, this video was taken at a drilling site in the Gulf of Mexico, but these squids are found all through the warm tropical waters of the Atlantic Ocean, including areas around the Bermuda Triangle. I probably don't need to say this after the clip you just saw, but these things' tentacles get incredibly long, around 4 to 8 meters or 13 to 26 feet. These are the only squids known to live in the Hadal Zone, the deepest region of the ocean, but it makes sense. They definitely do fit in with all the other strange, alien-looking life that lurks down there. What you're seeing here is a fish trying to avoid the deadly tentacles of a Portuguese man-o-war. They're really cool looking creatures, but their stings are powerful enough to kill some fish and in rare cases even humans. If their venom travels to the lymph nodes, it can cause airway blockage, shortness of breath, cardiac issues, and again, in extreme cases, even death. In every case though, their stings are incredibly painful. Anything that gets that guttural, almost animalistic scream out of you, that's gotta be incredibly painful. This video was posted to the channel Aqua de Leo, who'd been spearfishing with a friend when a wave pushed a Portuguese man-o-war right over his head. He went on to write in the description, "I didn't even see it, but immediately felt the tentacles on my neck and it sent me into a world of pain. As soon as I lifted my head out of the water, I felt it push up against my lips and cheeks, and the tentacles latched onto my mask and neck." He finished off with a pretty important word of advice: never dive alone. Great whites may be terrifying, but have you ever heard of the megamouth shark? Definitely sounds pretty ominous. This is some rare footage of one. Now, it may not look all that scary here, but how about this image? There we go, that's more terrifying. Just imagine if that thing was alive. These are very elusive sharks. In fact, they were only discovered in 1976. Not only can they get really big, up to 18 feet or about 5.5 meters long, but as you can probably tell, they're very odd looking and have one of the largest mouths in the animal kingdom. Huge, wide, and lined with hundreds of tiny teeth, designed for filtering plankton from the water. Now, unlike most sharks that are sleek, fast hunters, the megamouth moves slowly and feeds by swimming through the water with its open mouth, so it may not be the most threatening of sharks in practice, but they do look pretty terrifying, and I'm still sure you wouldn't want to get in one's way. A much more dangerous shark though is the oceanic white tip. There's no escaping these guys. They're found all over the ocean, including the Bermuda Triangle, but they don't go very far north or south, preferring warmer waters, and they can be very aggressive. They aren't very picky about what they eat either. They're scavenging, opportunistic feeders, and if you're ever stranded out in the middle of the ocean, you'll probably be dealing with these things if you're out there long enough. Oceanic white tips have been responsible for tons of attacks during shipwrecks and plane crashes, especially when injured survivors are leaking out their BLOOD into the water. They just love that. It's not that they prefer humans over anything else, they just go for whatever's most vulnerable and easy to catch. So if a plane crashes or a ship sinks, the shark may not hesitate to swim in and check out the scene, circling the area before picking off the survivors. Imagine, if you will, that you're flying over the ocean on your way to Florida or Puerto Rico, anywhere around the Bermuda Triangle. It's been a peaceful flight. In fact, you're almost nodding off as you stare down at the ocean below. But then you spot something a little strange. A shadow is looming in the water, and it's getting bigger and bigger. It starts creating ripples, which get more and more violent. People around you are starting to notice now. Passengers are even starting to audibly panic, and before you can even react, a colossal figure leaps out of the water, its enormous jaws snapping open, and to your horror, your tranquil window view is soon enveloped by this ginormous beast's gaping maw. And then that's it. You and everyone else in the plane just gone, dragged into the depths of the ocean down below. You've been what I'm going to call Bermuda beasted. We all know what makes the Bermuda Triangle so intriguing are all the ships and planes that have gone missing while flying or sailing through it. There are tons of theories as to what could be happening, and one of them is that there's this massive undiscovered monster gobbling up boats and aircraft dubbed the Bermuda Beast. The pufferfish or blowfish is another sea creature with a deadly surprise. When threatened, the fish inflates itself, making it much harder for predators to swallow. Some pufferfish species even have spikes that protrude when inflated, but what makes the pufferfish so dangerous isn't the inflated body or the spines, it's the potent neurotoxin they carry inside their bodies. Tetrodotoxin is at least 1,200 times more toxic than cyanide. The toxin is concentrated in the fish's internal organs and skin, and even a small amount can be deadly. In fact, just one pufferfish can kill up to 30 adult humans. The fish's toxicity makes it highly unappealing to most predators, but in Japan, it's actually considered a delicacy. Fugu is a dish that's carefully prepared by licensed chefs who are trained to remove the toxic parts of the fish, but mistakes can happen, and when they do, the results can be fatal. Before Japan's licensing system, there were numerous deaths every year from improperly prepared fugu. Thanks to the licensing system, though, fatalities have gone down, but there's still the occasional case of food poisoning, often when people try to catch and prepare pufferfish on their own. The Titan triggerfish. Marine biologist Selena McMillan described being chased by one of these things, saying it was one of the scariest moments of her career. The Titan triggerfish is a large, colorful species of triggerfish found in coral reefs of the Indo-Pacific. These fish are known for their powerful jaws and large, sharp teeth, which are well suited for crushing hard-shelled prey like crustaceans and sea urchins. Triggerfish's teeth are unique because they're straight but incredibly thin, which makes them razor sharp. Despite their delicate appearance, they're surprisingly strong and resistant to damage. These fish are highly territorial, especially during their breeding season. They create and fiercely defend nesting sites on the ocean floor. Divers and snorkelers who may venture too close to these nesting areas may provoke an aggressive response from the triggerfish. They've been known to attack intruders, including humans, to protect their nests. They can also reach over 2 feet or 60 centimeters in length and are found in pretty shallow waters. Viperfish live in the deep, dark waters of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, usually between 200 and 5,000 feet below the surface. They're not big, but they're definitely fierce. And what makes them terrifying, aside from how damn ugly they are, is the glow they emit from their body. This bioluminescent light is like a built-in lure to attract other fish, tricking them into getting close enough for the viperfish to snap its jaws shut on them. Even though it's not massive, the viperfish is a brutal predator, and scientists are fascinated by these things, but a little scared of studying it because it lives in some of the most extreme depths. And getting close enough to study it also means diving into some pretty dangerous waters. Next up, we have the oceanic white-tipped shark. These sharks are adapted to life in the open ocean and are often found far from shore, making encounters with humans pretty rare, and that's probably for the best. In terms of behavior, the oceanic white-tipped shark has a reputation of being aggressive, especially in situations where it associates humans with potential food sources. And because they live out in the middle of the ocean, they take whatever food they can get. They're opportunistic hunters. To make matters worse, these sharks are very unpredictable. They can switch from seemingly calm or indifferent to aggressive at the drop of a hat. The frilled shark looks like it came straight from the age of the dinosaurs. Often called a living fossil, this creature is an ancient species that's been around for over 150 million years. It has a long eel-like body with a head that almost looks like a snake, and its mouth is packed with all these sharp, backward-facing teeth. The frilled shark can grow up to 6.5 feet long, but the most terrifying thing about it is its feeding style. It's able to lunge forward and swallow prey whole using its long, needle-like teeth to trap it. It hangs out in deep waters, often between 200 and 500 feet below the surface. Scientists rarely get a chance to study them up close. The deep, dark waters they live in are hard to reach, and any research that involves these sharks comes with serious risks. Getting a good look at a frilled shark in its natural habitat is a dangerous undertaking. Because of that, there's still a lot we don't know about this eerie, prehistoric predator. The blue-ringed octopus is one of the most fascinating but terrifying creatures in the ocean. There are 4 known species of these octopuses, and they all share one thing in common. They are highly venomous and can kill a human in just a matter of minutes. The venom they carry contains tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin that is 1,000 times more potent than cyanide. Even more frightening is that there's no anti-venom to counteract the effects, making a bite from this octopus potentially fatal. Tetrodotoxin is spread throughout the octopus's body, not just in its venom glands, which is what makes these creatures both poisonous and venomous. The blue-ringed octopus is typically found in tropical and subtropical waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. They get their name from those bright blue rings on their bodies, which only appear when the octopus feels threatened or is about to unleash its deadly venom. What's especially terrifying about this species is that their bites are often painless, so you might not even know you've been bitten, but the venom works quickly, paralyzing the body and often leading to respiratory failure. The effects can be rapid, with death occurring anywhere from 24 hours to just 20 minutes after the toxin enters the body. Cone snails are fascinating creatures, and while over 1,000 species exist, there's one species in particular that you just don't want to get near: the geography cone snail. These mollusks are predatory, using specialized venom-filled teeth to paralyze their prey, which is usually small fish, invertebrates, or other snails. The geography cone snail is dangerous though. It can grow up to 6 inches or 15 centimeters long, and its venom contains more than 10,000 active compounds, which are powerful enough to paralyze and even kill humans. A sting from a geography cone snail can cause respiratory paralysis and death if not treated immediately. The venom attacks the nervous system and can lead to suffocation. Over the past 30 years, about 15 people have died from geography cone snails. These things are stealthy and fast too. Their harpoon-like teeth strike so quickly that most people don't even realize they've been stung until it's too late. When it comes to marine creatures with the potential to kill, few are as feared as the box jellyfish. These creatures are famous for their venom, which can cause paralysis, heart failure, and even death within minutes. Box jellyfish are especially dangerous in regions like northern Australia and Southeast Asia, where they're found in large numbers. The Australian box jellyfish has tentacles that can reach up to 10 feet or 3 meters long, and their bodies can grow up to 12 inches or 30 centimeters in diameter. Just one sting can inject a massive amount of venom into a victim's body. It can paralyze a person almost instantly, and if enough venom is delivered, it can lead to heart failure. There are over 50 known species of box jellyfish, but another, one of the most feared, is the irukandji jellyfish. These ones are much smaller, under an inch, but that's kind of what makes them so scary. Their venom is potent and can cause what's called irukandji syndrome, symptoms of which are intense pain, muscle cramping, high heart rate, and BLOOD pressure, along with fluid in the lungs. It can cause life-threatening heart complications. In Australia alone, between 50 and 100 people are hospitalized each year with irukandji syndrome, and the number of box jellyfish-related deaths, though hard to track, may be much higher than reported. The beaked sea snake is another terrifying sea creature found off the coasts of India, Australia, Africa, and the Arabian Sea. This species is considered one of the most venomous sea snakes in the world. It's part of a group of 64 species of sea snake, but the beaked sea snake stands out for its aggressive nature and incredibly potent venom. This snake's venom is so powerful that it's 8 times more toxic than that of a cobra. A mere 1.5 milligrams of its venom can kill a human. A full dose can kill up to 22. The venom contains a strong neurotoxin that causes paralysis, including paralysis of the diaphragm, which can lead to respiratory failure. Though bites from sea snakes are rare, researchers are especially wary of the beaked sea snake because it is known to be more aggressive. Most sea snake bites happen when fishers try to disentangle them from their nets. Stonefish are some of the most well-camouflaged creatures in the ocean, making them fascinating but terrifying. These fish blend in so perfectly with their surroundings, whether it's rock, coral, or the seabed, it's almost impossible to spot them. And that's precisely what makes them so dangerous. They remain perfectly still, waiting for prey to pass by, and when the moment comes, they strike, ambushing and swallowing their prey whole. But it's not just their hunting skills that makes a stonefish so terrifying. The venom in their dorsal spines is released when the fish is disturbed. If you happen to step on one, well, let's just say you'll probably regret it. Stonefish stings are said to be excruciatingly painful and cause intense swelling in the affected limb within minutes. If the sting isn't treated, it can lead to necrosis and in some cases even death. Luckily, fatalities are rare, and immediate treatments like heat immersion, which helps to neutralize the venom, and anti-venom can help save lives. But no wonder scientists are more hesitant to study these creatures in the wild, given the risk of encountering one while out in the ocean. Sea cucumbers don't really sound all that scary, but I mean, just look at this one. This is what's called a brown-ringed sea cucumber, and it was just discovered. Scientists on a submarine were exploring the South China Sea when they spotted this small, reddish sea creature. It didn't quite look like anything they'd seen before, and as it turns out, it wasn't anything they'd seen before. It was found during a series of dives between 2018 and 2023, using a manned submersible. When the team surfaced and had a chance to study the creature, which had something like 20 tentacles and over 70 tube feet, they realized that they'd uncovered a new animal and gave it this crazy name that, again, I can't even begin to pronounce. AKA the brown-ringed sea cucumber, though. This new species of sea cucumber can grow to about 8 inches long and around 2 inches wide, and this wasn't all they found either. Yanlu Zhao and Haibin Zhang, part of the research team, also discovered 2 more new species of sea cucumber on the same expedition. Next up, we have another story that came out this past April about a new creature discovered off the southern tip of China. Just what is this thing? An ancient wood carving? Well, no, it's actually the shell of a living animal. A research team from China was exploring a deep sea area called the Haima Cold Seep off the coast of Hainan Island when their underwater robot picked up something from the sea floor. It was a shell, and at first the researchers didn't really think much of it, but once they took a closer look, they were like, well, actually, what exactly is this thing? The shell belonged to a type of mollusk known for living in extreme environments, like cold seeps. These are special areas on the seafloor where chemicals like methane and hydrogen sulfide leak up from the Earth's crust, creating this chemically rich water that only very specific life forms can survive in. This weird shell was just over 4 inches long and had a, quote, robust and rectangular shape. The mollusk's foot, the part that sticks out from the shell when it wants to move around, was described as large with an oval sole. But it was really the shape of the shell that made this thing so unique. It's the fact that it's rectangular. Other species' shells are usually curved inward on the ends. Just look at how gorgeous this snail is. On the coastlines of Japan, a tiny new species of sea creature has been found. Hiroshi Fukuda, a researcher and associate professor at Okayama University, first came across these rare snails over 30 years ago when he was still a student. They were actually relatively well known in Japan, but had never been formally documented until last year. Fukuda studied dozens of these snails and ended up naming them this. And luckily, it has a much easier to pronounce nickname, the strange dwarf snail. These snails are tiny, measuring less than 1/10 of an inch long, and Fukuda described these snails as bizarre. These things are small, but they move around quickly, crawling in step-like movements. Fukuda wrote in his paper that they're usually found crawling on muddy walls of earthworm and crab burrows, which might be why they were overlooked for such a long time. This strange-looking animal was discovered in an underwater cave. A team of researchers recently discovered a brand new species of hermit crab in a dark underwater cave in Japan, about 100 feet from the entrance. The 3-person team found this tiny critter in just about 3 feet of water. After carefully examining the male specimen, they realized they had come across a new species. This is its name, also called this. Not even the alternate name is easy to say. This new species is incredibly small though, measuring less than 1 centimeter long. Aw, that's cute. What really set it apart from other hermit crabs were its claws. They were described as strongly unequal and dissimilar. The right claw is moderately slender, the left claw is much smaller, only about half the size of the right one. And this last thing looks like it just hurts. Look at those like little spines and spikes on it. In March of 2021, researchers took a deep dive into the South China Sea using a manned submersible. During one of their dives, they came across a large crab sitting on some coral. They captured the creature and brought it back to study. Until then, this was a never-before documented species, which was later dubbed Gordonopsis mazupo. Finally, a scientific name that I can actually get my lips around. But they're also known as Mazu's porter crab. This new species is considered pretty big for a crab. Its body is about 1.2 inches long, with legs stretching more than 3.5 inches. When you include its legs, the crab measures over 8 inches across in total. Its claws are especially interesting, described as blade-like. The researchers named it Gordonopsis mazupo after Mazu, the Chinese goddess or grandmother of the sea. And so far, only one of these things has ever been found. Well, this thing looks creepy. Earlier this year, a team of researchers from China set out on an expedition to the northwestern Pacific Ocean to explore the depths around the Caroline Plate, an area off the coast of the Philippines. They weren't diving themselves, but instead used an underwater robot to explore the area and collect tiny creatures from the ocean floor. And when the robot pulled up a sample from a seamount, among the tiny critters they found was a pregnant amphipod, a type of shrimp-like creature that's just a few millimeters long. But this wasn't like any amphipod they'd ever seen. This was a brand new species, now been dubbed Elusive carolinus. It's an interesting but again very creepy looking creature. Good thing it's so small. The eyes in particular were noted as being large and very well pigmented, which helped it stand out among the other species that live in these deep waters. And here's the really interesting part. When the researchers looked inside its body, they found 9 baby amphipods growing inside her. This footage here was captured in 2015, a never-before-seen species of squid. So a group of researchers from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, Guillermo Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research Kiel, and the University of South Florida teamed up for an expedition in the Gulf of California off Mexico's west coast. Using a remotely operated vehicle, the team was able to dive as deep as 8,000 feet without ever leaving the surface and without disturbing the creature's environment. The team managed to capture a large squid on camera, but soon they noticed something strange about this one. The squid was carrying dozens of giant eggs, around 30 to 40 of them, each about half an inch across. Now, squids of the species they thought this mother was, called gonatids, usually carry eggs that are only about 1/5 of an inch in diameter, so these were much bigger. They'd never seen eggs this large in any gonatid squid before, and there's no other squid known to carry eggs of this size. So the researchers figured there was a very good chance they'd discovered a brand new species altogether. Pictured here is a brand new species of fish found in Africa. Earlier this year in Zambia, a strange creature was spotted swimming through a river, heading straight for a bridge. Scientists pulled the creature from the water, at first having no idea what they just found, while it turned out they discovered a brand new species. The team had been in the middle of a project studying a group of fish called nanocharax, more commonly known as darters. They were looking at preserved specimens collected from rivers in South Africa when something odd started to stand out. The fish from a few specific rivers, mostly caught in 2005, had a distinct pattern that was different from the usual darters they were used to. These fish had a unique scale pattern and a banded coloring that immediately caught the researchers' attention. And after further investigation, they realized that they'd uncovered a completely new species dubbed Nanocharax skeltoni, or Skelton's darter fish. They decided to name the species after Paul Harvey Skelton, a renowned professor at the South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity. A study came out this past April about a brand new species of jellyfish discovered off the coast of Florida, pictured here. Peter Schuchert and Richard Collins carried out 91 nighttime scuba dives near Palm Beach over the course of years, and they found some pretty cool stuff, like, just some never before seen jellyfish, for example. After photographing the creatures and capturing 2 of them, they took a closer look and realized they'd found a new species which was soon dubbed Zancleopsis grandis, or the large Zancleopsis jellyfish. These things are just over an inch tall with tentacles stretching more than 2 inches in length. The body itself has a long, narrow shape that shifts as the jellyfish moves through the water. The researchers named it Grandis because of the relatively large size and the big bulbs on its tentacles, and just like other jellyfish, Zancleopsis grandis uses jet propulsion to move. It sucks in water and then squirts it back out through a small opening, propelling itself forward through the water. Kinda crazy that these new things were found in Florida. As Collins put it, part of the work we are doing is to demonstrate and document the amazing oceanic biodiversity here in Florida. Florida waters are well studied relative to most of the world's oceans, and yet there is still so much to learn and discover. And yeah, that is crazy because Florida, right? And then you got all this vast water over so much of the earth. Like, who knows what crazy stuff could be out there. Now, this is the first and only piece of footage ever captured of a living genus of squid called this. Just earlier this year, the Schmidt Ocean Institute led a team of oceanographers on an expedition to some of the remotest parts of the southeastern Pacific Ocean. During their month-long mission, they came across 20 never-before-seen species and another 80 that were observed in this part of the ocean for the first time. These squids have only ever been seen on the surface, i.e. they've been brought up in nets, dead. We've never seen one alive swimming around in its natural habitat, so this was pretty amazing to see. And there haven't even been that many specimens of these creatures either. It's such a rare genus that we've only had like a few specimens, and a lot of them came from the late 1800s. Next on the list is the deep sea hatchetfish. This fish looks pretty cool, but also incredibly strange. Thank God these things are so small, because just imagine that horrifying face, but like the size of a whale. They look like frowning ghosts. The deep sea hatchetfish is a small fish that lives in the deep, dark parts of the ocean, like the Mariana Trench. It has a very unique hatchet-shaped body and a hatchet-like metallic color, which helps it blend in with its surroundings. And they glow. The hatchetfish can control how bright it glows, though. It uses its bioluminescence both for communicating with other fish and for attracting prey. Let's talk about the fangtooth fish next. Fangtooths are some of the scariest looking creatures you'll find in the Mariana Trench. They're small, but their teeth are absolutely massive compared to the size of their bodies. These fish have a very simple body design, a long cylindrical shape that's built for life in the deep. But what really makes them stand out is their huge, sharp teeth. In fact, their teeth are so big that when they close their mouths, the teeth don't fit all the way inside, so they just kind of stick out. Aside from their terrifying appearance, though, these fish aren't very dangerous. They feed on other small fish and invertebrates that live in the deep ocean. Again, just glad these things are about 6 inches long instead of 6 feet. Some things are just too ugly to be any bigger than they are. No offense to the fangtooths in the audience. Next on the list is the deep sea dragonfish. This creature is pretty incredible, partly because it's got some crazy bioluminescence going on. The dragonfish can produce its own light, which helps it in the pitch black depths where it lives. The light comes from these little organs called photophores that line its body. But what's even cooler is that the dragonfish has a big long chin with a light producing organ at the end of it. It uses this to lure prey right into its mouth. The dragonfish also has some seriously terrifying teeth. They look like something straight out of a monster movie. Again, might not be the biggest fish in the deep, but it definitely looks like one you'd want to avoid if you were swimming down there. Here are 3 words that don't sound very appealing placed right next to one another. Giant toxic amoebas, or GTAs. Scientists call them xenophyophores. How would you feel about running into a 4-inch long amoeba? Probably not great. These guys are found all over the Mariana Trench though, and they're huge for a reason. The extreme cold, insane pressure, and the complete lack of sunlight make the conditions perfect for these single-celled organisms to grow to pretty gigantic sizes. They're incredibly tough survivors. They've adapted to become super resistant to a bunch of harmful stuff that would kill pretty much anything else, including us humans. They can tolerate uranium, mercury, lead, and other dangerous substances which would be lethal to us. These toxic amoebas have been found at crazy depths of up to 6.5 miles or 10.6 kilometers underwater, and scientists wouldn't be shocked if they find more of them even deeper one day. And finally, we've got the Mariana snailfish, a species that was discovered in 2014 in holds the title for being the deepest living fish. It lives at nearly 27,000 feet below the surface, over 5 miles deep. The pressure down there is so intense that it would crush a human in seconds. This ghostly white fish looks soft and squishy, kind of cute, like it might even melt if you touched it, but somehow these things survive in one of the harshest, most unforgiving environments on Earth. The snailfish's body is incredibly adaptable, allowing it to survive where most other creatures wouldn't last a minute. Even though it looks delicate though, it's a top predator in its world, feasting on tiny crustaceans and other prey. Its flexible blob-like body lets it squeeze into tight spaces, hunting in places that other fish could never reach. We're kicking things off with the toothed sea devil, a truly bizarre anglerfish. This little creature is a real nightmare, like you need me to tell you that looking at it. The female grows to about 13 centimeters or 5 inches long, and she doesn't have the usual fishing lure that most anglerfish do. Instead, she has a longer, sleeker body that helps her hunt more actively. But the really creepy part is her set of teeth. These teeth sprout from all these odd angles, crisscrossing inside, even outside her mouth, almost like they're stitched together. It just looks insane. Each tooth ends in a hook too, and they can move independently of each other, which helps her trap her prey. It's not clear exactly what she's hunting down there because scientists haven't observed any feeding behavior yet. These things just live so deep down, specimens are too rare to figure out what's actually in her stomach. As for the males, they have a glowing lure that they use to attract prey. Once something gets close enough, it snaps its massive jaws around the poor creature, sometimes even eating animals that are bigger than itself. The males also do something really strange too. They use their large sinus cavities to track down a female by scent, and when they find her, they latch onto her with their teeth and stay there for the rest of their life. Over time, their skin fuses with hers, and most of their body shrivels up while they feed off her BLOOD. It's a pretty crazy, creepy way to live. Then there's the Dumbo octopus, which looks like an adorable Disney creature compared to the nightmare fuel we just covered, hence the Dumbo reference. These little guys are pretty strange though. They look like they have big floppy ears, but those are actually fins. These octopuses don't swim like the others. They live super deep in the ocean, like really deep, over 13,000 feet down. Instead of swimming around, they use their tentacles to crawl along the seafloor. For food, they munch on small crustaceans, worms, or whatever drifts by. They don't bother chewing though. They're more like underwater vacuums, sucking up their meals whole. Because they live so deep, we don't know a ton about them. It's hard to get down that far. So who knows what else there is to learn about these cute, floppy creatures. The telescope octopus is a rare and mysterious creature that lives deep in the ocean, typically between 500 and 6,500 feet below the surface. This little octopus grows to about 8 inches long, and its arms make up almost half of that length. It's related to the glass octopus, another deep sea species, but has some pretty unique features that set it apart. Unlike most octopuses that move around on the seafloor, the telescope octopus prefers to drift with the ocean currents. It spends most of its time suspended in the water column, hanging vertically rather than swimming horizontally like most sea creatures. This helps it stay out of sight predators since its position in the water is hard to detect. On top of that, its translucent body makes it nearly invisible. It's so see-through that it doesn't cast any shadows, making it even harder for predators to spot. But this transparency isn't just good for hiding, it also helps the octopus sneak up on its prey who can't see it coming. Probably the most recognizable part of this creature are its eyes. Unlike most octopuses, which have round eyes, the telescope octopus has long, tube-like eyes that stick out from its head. They're unmovable stalks and can rotate, giving it a wide range of vision. It's the only known octopus species with eyes that work like a telescope, allowing it to spot both predators and prey from a distance. The rest of its body is also pretty unusual and has delicate webbing between its arms and white suckers along each one. This, combined with its nearly invisible body, give it a kind of ghostly appearance as it drifts through the deep sea. Scientists don't know a lot about this octopus because it's so hard to access, but they think its transparent body and strange eyes may be due to the fact that it stays in a sort of permanent juvenile state. This means it may never fully mature, living most of its life in a form similar to larva. Next, let's talk about the barrel-eye fish. This fish is seriously one of the weirdest creatures you'll you'll ever see. It has a see-through head, and it's got these glowing green orbs that look like eyes. But here's the thing, those eyes are actually inside its head, under a see-through section of skin, a bit like an astronaut helmet. Super strange, right? This fish lives out in the Mariana Trench, deep where sunlight doesn't really reach. Its tubular eyes face upwards, and they can rotate, so if it was to look up and find some food floating by, it can just swivel its eyes upwards. As for its body, it's pretty sleek and streamlined, built for deep sea life. These fish were first discovered back in 1939, but it wasn't easy to study them because when they brought them up to the surface, the pressure change would just crush their bodies. But now, with remotely controlled submersibles, we can study them much more easily. Now let's talk about Osidax, aka the zombie worm. These things sound like something from a sci-fi movie, and honestly, they kinda look like it too. Also known as bone worms or bone-eating worms, these creatures are nature's cleanup crew at the very bottom of the ocean. They feed on the remains of dead whales that sink to the ocean floor. When a whale dies, its body becomes a huge buffet for different sea creatures, including zombie worms. Instead of mouths, these worms have a special trick, if you want to call it that. They secrete acid that can dissolve bone-eating acid. Then they burrow into the whale bones, which is how they get their food. And here's where it gets even cooler. Osidax worms have a partnership with bacteria. The bacteria help break down the bones, and in return, the worms offer the bacteria a nice little home. These worms come in all sorts of colors, and scientists are still discovering new types. Alright, let's talk about sturgeon. You might be thinking, a sturgeon? Really? That's just, a big fish. But the thing is, these fish are pretty much prehistoric monsters. Some species, like the beluga sturgeon, can grow over 20 feet long and weigh more than 3,000 pounds. That's too much. Too many pounds. That's the size of a small boat, and their armored, bony bodies make them look like something that should have died out with the dinosaurs, but no, they're still swimming around in the depths of rivers and oceans, an animal that's barely changed in over 200 million years. People have mistaken them for sea serpents for centuries, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. There have been reports of massive, shadowy creatures surfacing in lakes and rivers, only for it to turn out to be an absolutely enormous sturgeon. And because some species live for over 100 years, you might just run into the same one that your great-grandparents saw, which is pretty cool. Now we're gonna get a little outlandish, but hear me out. The plesiosaur. It's supposed to be extinct. That's what scientists say, but for over a century, people have been spotting long-necked, flippered creatures in waters all around the world. Loch Ness, Lake Champlain, the oceans off Japan. Even experienced sailors and fishermen have reported seeing something that looks an awful lot like a living plesiosaur. One of the most famous cases may be the 1977 Zuyo Maru incident, where Japanese fishermen off the coast of New Zealand hauled up this bizarre rotting carcass that looked a lot like, well, a dead plesiosaur. Scientists quickly dismissed it as a decomposed basking shark, but some researchers just weren't buying this. The shape, the flippers, the long neck, it was all just a little too uncanny. If someone told you a sea serpent was caught on camera, your first thought would probably be like, maybe, I guess. But then you see the frilled shark and suddenly you're not so sure anymore. Like, I guess, yeah, sea serpents do exist. The thing is pure nightmare fuel. It's got an eel-like body, rows of needle-sharp teeth, and a mouth that looks way too big for its head. It's been around for 80 million years and has barely changed at all, which tends to be the case for some of Earth's ugliest, creepiest animals for whatever reason. The frilled shark usually stays deep underwater, but every now and then, one turns up near the surface. One was caught off the coast of Japan in 2007, and let's just say it didn't do anything to calm people's fears about what might be lurking in the abyss. Scientists say it's harmless to humans, but honestly, if you saw one of these things swimming toward you, would you really care? You'd have a mini heart attack regardless. Now, horseshoe crabs don't look that scary at first. They're just weird, alien-looking creatures that have been roaming the Earth for around 450 million years. But when you realize they've survived multiple mass extinctions, including the one that wiped out the dinosaurs, you start to wonder what kind of deal they made with the universe. Have horseshoe crabs been the key to life all along? Well, here's something really cool. Their BLOOD is blue, and I mean bright blue. And it has its uses, other than keeping the crabs alive, obviously. It's used in the biomedical industry. They harvest it to test for bacterial contamination in vaccines. So yeah, not only did these things outlive the dinosaurs, they're also aiding in modern medicine. Scientists still don't fully understand how they've managed to stick around for so long. Whatever they're doing though, it's working because they barely changed in 500 million years. And finally, if there ever was a real-life sea monster, it's the giant squid. For centuries, sailors have spun tales about this massive tentacled beast dragging ships under the waves, but no one really believed them. Then in the early 2000s, scientists finally got proof giant squids were real, and they were just as terrifying as the legends made them out to be. These deep-sea giants can grow over 40 feet long, and their eyes, some of the biggest in the animal kingdom, are specifically adapted to see in the pitch-black depths of the ocean. They use their long, lightning-fast tentacles to snatch up their prey, and their beaks are so strong they tear apart just about anything they catch. And let's not forget about their arch nemesis, the sperm whale. Deep-sea battles between these two have been going on for who knows how long, and sometimes washed up whale carcasses show up covered in these massive sucker marks, proof that these fights aren't just tales told by sailors. Even now, we barely know anything about giant squids. They just live so deep that almost everything we've learned has come from dead specimens or very rare footage. There could be Godzilla-sized ones deep down in the ocean. Who knows? Imagine reeling in a fish that was supposed to have been dead for 66 million years. Well, that's what happened in 1938 when a South African fisherman unknowingly pulled in a coelacanth, a prehistoric fish that scientists thought had gone extinct right alongside the dinosaurs. How insane would that have been? This living fossil has changed almost nothing in hundreds of millions of years. Unlike typical fish, the coelacanth has lobed fins with bone structures that almost look like primitive legs, and some researchers think they sorta kinda are, in that they may be this evolutionary bridge between sea creatures and the first land-walking vertebrates. Even weirder, they don't swim like normal fish. Instead, they sorta walk through the water, moving each fin in a coordinated way that kind of mimics four-legged animals. And oh yeah, they also glow. Their scales contain a type of bioluminescence that gives them an eerie, ghostly blue shimmer. Even now, coelacanths are incredibly elusive, found only in deep waters off of Africa and Indonesia. They also live pretty long, up to 100 years, maybe even more, and they give birth to live young after an absurdly long gestation period. Scientists estimate it takes up to 5 years for baby coelacanths to develop inside their mother, so they're really strange animals. If deep-sea creatures had horror movie, the lancetfish would be at the top of the list. These nightmarish predators have long, ribbon-like bodies, oversized dorsal fins that run nearly their entire length, and razor-sharp, needle-like teeth that jut out even when its mouth is closed. It's the kind of fish that looks like it shouldn't exist, and yet it does, lurking in the twilight zone of the ocean. One of the strangest things about the lancetfish is their diet, or lack of digestion to be more accurate. When scientists have studied their stomach contents, they've found whole, undigested prey inside, as if these fish have no real digestive system at all. It gives them an almost undead-like quality, as if they're constantly eating but never fully breaking down their food. Lancetfish are also hermaphrodites, meaning they have both male and female reproductive organs, which makes them even more unique. And here's another strange little fact. Even though the lancetfish live so deep down, they've been found washed up on beaches fully intact, leaving researchers wondering why they suddenly appear on land. Are they dying off because of some unknown environmental factor, or are they being forced to the surface by something even scarier lurking down in the deep? The discovery of the megamouth shark in 1976 was an accident, and one that left scientists amazed. This deep-sea giant, reaching up to 18 feet long, has one of the strangest appearances of any shark species. It's got this massive, gaping mouth that looks like it belongs to some extinct sea monster. Unlike most sharks, the megamouth doesn't hunt with speed or brute force. Instead, it swims slowly with its enormous mouth wide open, filtering tiny plankton and jellyfish from the water. It's a bizarre feeding method for a shark, more like a whale than a predator. What also makes the megamouth so terrifying is that we simply don't know a whole lot about it. This species was completely unknown to science until 1976, when one accidentally got caught in a US Navy ship's anchor line, and since then only a few dozen have ever been seen. That means a giant deep-sea shark was swimming around the world's oceans completely undetected for who knows how long, proving just how little we really know about what lurks deep down in the ocean. The chambered nautilus is basically a time capsule from 500 million years ago. Unlike most modern sea creatures, this relic has remained virtually unchanged since even before the age of the dinosaurs. It survived multiple mass extinctions and ice ages, making it one of the toughest survivors in the history of the planet. But what makes the nautilus kinda eerie is its design. Its shell follows the Fibonacci sequence, and for those who are unfamiliar, the Fibonacci sequence is a mathematical pattern found in galaxies, hurricanes, and even in human DNA. Is this just an evolutionary coincidence, or is there something more mysterious going on? Some believe that this natural spiral represents a form of perfection, almost as if it were intentionally crafted by some unknown force. Now, unlike squids and octopuses, its distant relatives, the nautilus lacks complex intelligence, but it makes up for it with one of the most efficient buoyancy control systems in the animal kingdom. It fills and empties its shell with gas to move up and down, allowing it to hover in this eerie, slow motion stillness. And how does it spot danger while living so deep down? Well, it has these large alien-like eyes that it uses to detect even the faintest movement in near total darkness. The goblin shark. This gorgeous deep-sea cutie has a grotesquely elongated snout, rubbery pinkish gray skin, and its most breathtaking feature, that inviting mouth. Just look at those jagged needle-sharp gnashers and tell me that you wouldn't want to kiss. Those jaws launch forward, by the way, like a projectile to grab their prey. First discovered in the late 19th century, the goblin shark remained a mystery for decades, rarely surfacing from its deep-sea habitat. Then, as commercial deep-sea fishing started to expand, more of them started appearing and showing just how bizarre this creature really is. Its hunting method is really cool, aside from the alien xenomorph jaw snap thing. See, instead of chasing its prey, the goblin shark senses electrical signals in the water using specialized organs in its snout, which is nuts. And then when an unsuspecting fish or squid swims by, its entire jaw explodes forward, grabbing its prey before snapping back into place. It's basically a biological harpoon, and it works so fast that high-speed cameras are needed to capture the movement. The goblin shark is a living relic, a species so ancient that it dates back over 125 million years, and I bet a lot of the animals that have to deal with it wish that it would have just stayed there. The deep-sea cusk eel is a long, thin, snake-like fish that lives in the deep, dark parts of the ocean, usually between 3,280 and 9,840 feet. With its eel-like body, it looks more like a giant worm than your typical fish, and it's got small fins that don't seem to serve much purpose. These fish don't swim around much. Instead, they tend to sort of crawl along the ocean floor, using their long bodies to slither through the mud and sand in search of food. The cusk eel is what you'd call an opportunistic feeder. It doesn't hunt actively, but will scavenge for whatever it can find, including dead animals or leftover bits of prey from other predators. They can survive in extreme conditions, and by that I mean they can go for long periods without food. This is important because food sources in the deep ocean are scarce, so the cusk eel's ability to go without eating for a while is key to its survival, especially because it doesn't really hunt. The hydrothermal vent worm is a remarkable creature found around hydrothermal vents, which are underwater geysers that release superheated mineral-rich water from the Earth's crusts. These vents are one of the most extreme environments on the planet, with temperatures that can soar above 350 degrees Fahrenheit or about 175 degrees Celsius. And the hydrothermal vent worm just loves this environment. What's truly fascinating about these worms is that they don't have mouths or digestive systems, meaning they don't eat food the way most animals do. Instead, they rely on bacteria that live inside their bodies. These bacteria consume the chemicals spewed by the vents, like hydrogen sulfide, and then convert them into energy through a process called chemosynthesis. This allows the worm to survive without eating anything in the traditional sense anyway. The worms themselves are long, bright red tubes that stick out of the ocean floor, often clustered around the vents. The red coloration is thanks to hemoglobin, which helps them transport oxygen and the low oxygen waters around the vents. Hydrothermal vent worms are just a perfect example of how life can adapt to some of the most extreme conditions on Earth. The bioluminescent jellyfish is one of the most well-known creatures of the deep sea, and it's easy to see why. Just look at them. This jellyfish has a protein called GFB, green fluorescent protein inside its body that allows it to emit a glow, often described as an eerie or ghostly light. It uses bioluminescence in a variety of ways. It can attract prey, communicate with other jellyfish, and confuse predators. See, the glow can be used to disorient creatures that might otherwise try to eat it, allowing the jellyfish to then escape. GFP has been so fascinating to scientists that it's now used a lot in research. It's helped develop a number of scientific tools, from tracing proteins in other organisms to improving medical imaging. Now, while this jellyfish isn't dangerous to humans, its glow in the dark depths of the ocean is nothing short of mesmerizing, and its slow, graceful movements combined with that creates this kind of surreal, haunting image, making it one of the most iconic deep-sea creatures in the world. Lanternfish are small deep-sea fish. They're some of the most abundant animals in the deep ocean. Found in the midnight zone, they can grow up to about 20 centimeters long, which of course isn't all that impressive, but it's their glowing bioluminescent bodies that make them look so darn cool. Now, this may seem like a pretty dumb ability for such a small, defenseless creature to have in the deep, dark depths of the ocean, but the bioluminescence is actually used for camouflage, helping them blend into the faint light from the surface when viewed from below. It makes it harder for predators to spot them. It's also a way for them to communicate or attract mates. Lanternfish are an important part of the food chain. They feed on plankton, and they're also a food source for a lot of larger predators. They've adapted to life in total darkness, with big eyes to help them detect the slightest bit of light. So sure, they're small and pretty fragile looking, but they're one of the most successful species in the midnight zone, found in large numbers across the globe. They may not be as frightening as some of the other creatures lurking in the depths, but their ability to survive in total darkness and extreme pressure is pretty impressive. Sloane's viperfish is a predatory fish that lives in the depths of the ocean, often found at depths between 500 and 2,000 meters or 1,600 to 6,500 feet. It has long, needle-like teeth that are so large they don't even fit in its mouth, when it's closed anyway. That jaw is capable of stretching to accommodate those oversized teeth, which it uses to catch and hold on to its prey before swallowing them whole. The viperfish also has bioluminescence, with glowing photophores along its body that help it to attract its prey. Those needle-like teeth paired with those glowing body make it one of the most fearsome looking creatures in the midnight zone. But although they look frightening, they're also a relatively small fish, usually only around 30 centimeters long. The Yeti crab was first discovered in 2005 in the South Pacific Ocean, deep around hydrothermal vents near New Zealand. What makes it so strange is that its claws are covered in a sort of fuzzy hair, but it's not actually hair, it's bacteria. Scientists think the bacteria might help process the sulfur in the water, which is an important nutrient for the crab, but it's hard to say for sure. The fact that they survive in one of the harshest ecosystems known to science is pretty cool though. The crab's habitat is one of the most extreme environments on Earth, with scalding temperatures, high pressure, but the Yeti crab thrives in it, and it kind of looks like an animal that fits right at home in an environment like this. It's pale and ghostly with spindly legs, which gives it a sort of haunting look, and it's not hard to see how it gets its name, of course. The strange fuzzy appearance and the white color makes it sort of look like the mythical furry Himalayan Yeti. The deep sea spider crab lives at depths where sunlight never reaches, and thank God for that, because just look at this thing. These are slow-moving scavengers with long legs that can stretch over 3 feet, and while that's not exactly giant by deep sea standards, it's pretty big for something as freaky looking as this. Its long limbs make it look otherworldly, and it kinda does live in another world. They're usually found on the seafloor, scavenging for dead animals or whatever else they can find. What really sets these guys apart from the other deep sea crabs is those legs, which are disproportionately long compared to the rest of their body, which you probably don't need me to tell you. Their body looks about the size of a large hamburger, but their legs are massive. They look like they belong to a completely different animal. It's hard to tell if these long legs are for efficiency in getting around, or if they just look that way because of the extreme pressure and low food availability this deep down. Just makes their bodies all weird. I don't know. These things aren't really aggressive, but they definitely look freaky. Thankfully, the vampire squid doesn't suck BLOOD, but it's certainly got a name that brings up some pretty creepy images. It's a small cephalopod that lives in the oxygen-deprived waters of the deep ocean, about 250 to 2,500 feet down. The vampire squid gets its name from its dark, velvety body and red eyes, which make it look like, well, a vampire squid. They look kinda intimidating, but they're not as scary as they seem. It doesn't actively hunt for other animals. Instead, it survives by feeding on plankton and marine detritus, which is the decaying organic material like dead plants and animals that sink down to the ocean floor. One of the most interesting things about it is that, unlike other squid species, it doesn't expel ink as a defense mechanism. Instead, it releases this bioluminescent mucus to confuse predators. The deep sea hatchetfish is a small, flat fish that lives deep down in the ocean, around 200 to 1,000 meters or 650 to 3,280 feet down. Its body is laterally compressed and shaped like a hatchet, which is of course where it gets its name. The body shape, combined with the fact that it's bioluminescent, helps it blend in with the faint light from above. Hatchetfish have large eyes designed to capture even the smallest amount of light from above, and they use their glowing undersides to make themselves harder to spot from below. The hatchetfish is another one of those creatures that on its own isn't that terrifying. They're very small, they pose zero threat to humans, but they have a kind of unsettling appearance. It's something about their downturned mouths and their semi-translucent looking bodies. They look a bit like tormented ghosts. And in its natural habitat, it's a master of staying out of sight while lurking in the depths. It's just a really cool creature. The black dragonfish is an almost mythical looking deep sea predator, or like something that would pop out of your chest in the far reaches of space. It has long, sharp teeth, a bioluminescent barbell hanging from its chin, and this sleek black body designed to blend into the darkness of the sea. These things just look mean. Found at depths of about 200 to 2,000 meters or 650 to 6,050 feet, it's a vicious hunter that uses its glowing barbell to lure in prey. They're ambush predators, taking advantage of the pitch black environment to surprise their victims. Yes, the glowing orb is very noticeable, but the stupid fish don't notice the horrific monster attached to it. And the black dragonfish doesn't just look scary, its teeth are sharp and curved backward, making it easier to trap prey once they're close enough. Hafgufa is a creature that has its roots in Norse mythology, described as a giant sea monster, often said to be the size of a whole island, lurking in the waters of the North Atlantic. Some stories depict it as a whale-like creature, others say it's a type of sea serpent. It's often associated with the kraken, and some believe they could be the same creature, just with different interpretations. According to the sagas, Hafgufa is so large that its movements could stir up dangerously huge waves, making it a threat to sailors in the region. In fact, it was said that it could swallow entire ships whole with just one gulp. The name Hafgufa is believed to come from Old Norse, meaning sea gulp, which of course fits perfectly with the idea of this creature swallowing anything in its path. Organism 46b is a mysterious creature that became famous after being allegedly discovered in Antarctica, described as a massive, shape-shifting octopus-type being, said to be able to manipulate its surroundings with its tentacles. Some reports even claim that it can hypnotize its prey, paralyzing them with this strange mind-controlling ability. The creature was supposedly discovered by a Russian scientific expedition in 2004. They were investigating the icy waters beneath the Antarctic ice shelf. According to the tale, the team encountered this creature in a submerged lake, with the monster being able to grow to over 30 feet long. The creature is said to have the ability to mimic other creatures, allowing it to blend into its environment or appear as a completely different organism to fool predators or prey. The whole thing got attention after an expedition member supposedly shared the tale online, but there's still no solid proof. It's become something of a Russian government cover-up conspiracy. The Ningen is one of the most bizarre creatures in modern cryptozoology. Allegedly, it lives in the icy waters around Antarctica. Most reported sightings come from Japanese sailors. The Ningen is described as a humanoid sea creature with this pale white body that some say resembles a giant twisted version of a human. That's what makes this thing so creepy. The creature is said to be massive, often reported to be around 20 to 30 meters long or 65 to 98 feet, with a head, arms, and legs, but no real distinct facial features. The first report came about in the early 2000s when Japanese fishermen and crew members of research ships started talking about sightings of this bizarre thing. Some say they've seen it swimming near the ship or breaching the surface like a whale. What makes the Ningen so creepy isn't just its size or its appearance, but the way it seems to avoid any form of human contact, keeping its distance and vanishing as quickly as it appears. The Kraken is one of the most infamous sea monsters in folklore, often depicted as this giant octopus or squid type thing that terrorizes sailors by dragging entire ships under the sea. The legend dates back to the 18th century. Stories of a colossal creature lurking off the coasts of Norway and Greenland. Like with many legendary creatures, there are different descriptions, but it's usually said to be so massive that its tentacles can reach out and capsize ships with a single swipe. Some sailors even reported seeing the Kraken's huge arms rise above the surface like a massive wall, causing a storm of panic before the ship was dragged into the deep. The Kraken seems about as outlandish as it gets, but here's the thing. It may not actually be pure fiction. Some think that what these sailors were describing may have actually been giant squids, which can grow to over 40 feet long. The Leviathan. Pretty much the ultimate sea monster, one that's haunted our collective imagination for centuries, even if we don't know it. It comes from ancient texts, most famously the Bible, where it's depicted as this fearsome sea serpent, which has really become the archetype for all monstrous sea creatures. The description varies depending on who's telling the story, but it's often depicted as this enormous dragon-like beast with scales tough enough to withstand the toughest of weapons. Some tales paint it as a creature of chaos, one that could swallow ships whole or cause storms to wreck entire fleets. The name Leviathan comes from the Hebrew Bible, where it's described as an ancient creature of the deep, sometimes associated with destruction and darkness. Over the centuries, it's been linked to the sea itself, a symbol of the unknown and the powerful forces of nature that sailors feared most. Japanese sailors had plenty to worry about when they set out to sea: storms, shipwrecks, the pure vastness of the unknown, but nothing unsettled them quite like the Umibozu, said to be this massive, shadowy entity that would rise up from the ocean on calm nights, a towering black shape with no real features other than its glowing white eyes. Not the type of tentacled or serpentine sea creature you usually picture, and it didn't act like one either. It wouldn't attack right away. Instead, it would demand a barrel from the crew, and if they gave it one, it would use it to then scoop water into their ship until they sank. If they refused, well, things didn't end much better. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. No one really knows where the legend comes from originally, but some say that Umibozu is the ghost of a drowned monk, cursed to haunt the sea forever. Others think it's more of a warning, a way to explain how fast things can turn deadly out in the open water. And In some versions, it only shows up when someone on board has angered the gods, meaning if you saw one, your fate was already sealed. The Lusca is a creature that haunts the waters off the Caribbean. Once again, this thing probably doesn't look like anything you're imagining. It's said to be half shark, half octopus. Some even describe it having 3 sharks' heads, so a pretty bizarre looking monster and equally as terrifying. It lurks in the dark depths of underwater caves, ready to drag unsuspecting swimmers or boats down into the water. Local fishermen and sailors who spent too much time on the water often share these chilling stories about close encounters with it. Many sightings of the Lusca have been reported near the blue holes of Andros Island in the Bahamas. One of the most famous incidents happened on January 18th of 2011, when what appeared to be the body of this giant octopus washed up on Grand Bahama Island. Witnesses said that the remains looked like just a part of the creature's head and mouth, and the rest of the body missing. Based on what they saw though, local fishermen who were familiar with octopus anatomy estimated that this creature, if intact, would have measured between 20 and 30 feet long when alive. The description of this next creature is pretty strange, but it actually has roots in real-life reports. It's called Steller's sea ape. It was first described by Georg Wilhelm Steller, a German naturalist who came across it during an expedition to the Bering Sea in the 18th century. According to Steller, the creature was seen in the waters near the Commander Islands, a remote part of Russia. What makes it so strange? Well, it was described as this mix between a primate and a seal, an ape-like creature with the body of a seal, complete with dark fur, a wide mouth, and a flat nose. Some reports say it had a tail like a seal's, but with the arms of a monkey even. I told you this one was gonna be strange. The sea ape was said to have been spotted in the wild swimming and occasionally popping its head out of the water. There's a theory that it could have been a type of extinct or undiscovered sea mammal, a creature that went extinct before scientists could get a proper chance to identify it. Trunco is another weird one. It's the nickname given to an animal reportedly seen off the coast of Margate, South Africa, on October 25th, 1924. The creature was first noticed battling 2 killer whales, which allegedly fought with it for about 3 hours. Witnesses claim the strange creature used its tail to fend off the whales and even managed to lift itself out of the water by 20 feet at one point. After the battle, the creature's carcass washed ashore on Margate Beach, where it remained for 10 days. The animal was said to be around 47 feet long, 10 feet wide and 5 feet high. It had a trunk about 5 feet long and 14 inches in diameter, and a tail that measured about 10 feet. One of the most unusual features was its snowy white fur, which was about 8 inches long. Interestingly, the trunk was also attached directly to the torso with no head visible. This led British cryptozoologist Carl Schuker to dub the creature Trunco in his 1996 book, The Unexplained. Ogopogo is the mysterious creature said to live in Lake Okanagan, British Columbia. Described as a serpent-like monster with a long, undulating body, the creature has been part of local folklore for centuries. Indigenous tribes around the lake have long spoken of a water monster said to control the waters, creating waves and whirlpools to drag people under. The first European sighting was recorded in 1872, but the legend really gained traction in the 1920s. Since then, there have been numerous reports with witnesses claiming to see this large creature with humps rising out of the water, sometimes with this horse-like head and reptilian features. Some skeptics argue that Ogopogo is just a misidentified sturgeon or a floating log, but the fact is, sightings just continue to this day. Could it be some prehistoric survivor, a remnant of creatures like the plesiosaur or a giant eel?
Picture a fish-like creature that washes up on shore with glowing scales, a monkey-like mouth, and hauntingly human eyes. It sounds made up, right? In Japan, this being is called the Ningyo, and it's part of local folklore for centuries. Some versions of the story say that eating its flesh grants immortality, but also comes with a terrifying curse. But here's where things get strange. Some historians and researchers believe these stories may have stemmed from real sightings of of grotesque deep-sea animals like the stargazer fish, which buries itself in sand with its upward-facing, human-like eyes exposed. Others think fishermen stumbled upon rotting specimens of rarely seen species, mistook them for supernatural beings, and preserved them. In fact, some preserved Ningyo mummies still exist in Japanese temples. They're disturbing, misshapen hybrids usually stitched together from fish and monkey parts, but the devotion they've received over the years suggests people really believed they were once alive. Whether hoax, hybrid, or hallucination, the Ningyo legend might just be the creepiest mermaid origin story of all. If you've ever walked along a beach and found a small black pouch with curled tendrils at each corner, congratulations, you found a mermaid's purse. At least that's what folklore called them. In truth, they're the egg cases of sharks, skates, and rays, but for centuries no one knew that. Old mariners believed these mysterious, leathery pods were literal mermaid eggs. Some said they'd fallen off a mermaid as she climbed onto the rocks. Others claimed finding one meant a sea maiden was nearby spying on humans. In Celtic and Norse legends, these purses were seen as omens, either blessings or curses, depending on the tide and where they were found. It wasn't until marine biology advanced in the 19th century that scientists figured out that these were actually baby shark nurseries. But the nickname mermaid's purse stuck, and to this day, many kids grow up calling them that. It's one of those rare cases where a myth and a scientific fact overlap, because the ocean never gives up its secrets all at once. Okay, this one's gonna sound weird. Sea cucumbers are basically squishy blobs that crawl along the ocean floor, but in several Pacific Island and Southeast Asian legends, they're not just sea slugs, they're shapeshifters. In Polynesian myth, there are tales of sea beings that could morph into women, walk on land, seduce fishermen, and then slip back into the sea as a boneless creature. It sounds like fantasy, but here's where it gets interesting. Some species of sea cucumber can eject their internal organs when threatened and then regrow them. Others can liquefy their bodies and slide through tiny crevices. Early sailors, unfamiliar with these bizarre defense mechanisms, believed sea cucumbers were magical or cursed. In Micronesia, elders speak of ocean spirits with bodies that, quote, melted into the waves. It's not hard to connect the dots between a regenerating, shape-shifting sea creature and the more bizarre mermaid myths. This is nature playing its weirdest cards, and humans, as always, turning those cards into stories. Now imagine it's nighttime. The fog rolls in, the only sound is the gentle lapping of waves until a guttural, human-like wail echoes from the rocks. You're not hallucinating. That scream? It's an elephant seal. Northern elephant seals are massive. Males can grow over 4,000 pounds, and they make some of the eeriest sounds in the animal kingdom. During mating season, they bellow and howl in ways that are disturbingly close to human cries. Early explorers along the California and Alaskan coasts described seeing, quote, grotesque mermaids on the shore, bloated bodies, long faces, wide eyes. Many of these reports likely described elephant seals in the middle of a fight or mating display. There are also Inuit stories of sea women with tragic voices who lured hunters too far from land. Some of those tales might have been inspired by real-life encounters with these beasts. It's a reminder that sometimes the creepiest mermaids aren't graceful or seductive, they are loud, aggressive, and built like a refrigerator with flippers. Our final creature might be the least mermaid-like, but it also might be the most terrifying. The deep-sea anglerfish looks like a demon from a nightmare. The females are huge compared to the males. They have bioluminescent lures growing from their heads and mouths lined with translucent, inward-pointing teeth. They live over a mile deep in the ocean, so deep that sunlight doesn't reach them, and when they rise towards the surface, usually only when dead or dying, they are absolutely horrifying to witness. I'm sure we all remember the anglerfish that went viral on TikTok earlier this year. I miss her. Some siren legends from Greece and West Africa mention sea women who glowed in the dark, hypnotized sailors with strange lights, and devoured men whole. Sound a little familiar? Scientists didn't get a full full view of a live anglerfish until the early 2000s. Before that, all we had were creepy, half-rotted specimens. Imagine one of those washing up on shore in the Middle Ages. You'd absolutely think it was a demon or a sea witch. In a way, anglerfish are the purest proof that the ocean has always been full of creatures so bizarre, so alien that our minds did what they always do, turn them into myths. Imagine you've been at sea for months. You're dehydrated, sunburned, and slowly losing your grip on reality. Then, suddenly, you spot a figure rising from the waves. Long arms, a rounded face, and what looks like a tail sliding beneath the surface. You've just seen a mermaid. Or so you think. In reality, you've met a manatee. Christopher Columbus himself wrote about encountering mermaids in the Caribbean in 1493, though he admitted they were, quote, not as beautiful as they are painted. Harsh, but understandable. Manatees are large, gentle marine mammals that can grow over 13 feet long and weigh more than 1,000 pounds. But when they float upright to breathe, cradle their young, and glance towards a ship, it's not hard to see why sailors, hyped up on rum and desperation, thought they'd found something magical. It's one of the clearest examples of myth meeting biology. If the manatee is the mermaid of the Atlantic, the dugong is her cousin in the Indian Ocean. These guys are smaller, more streamlined relatives of manatees, and they've also played a major role in mermaid lore across Southeast Asia, East Africa, and even Australia. What's eerie is how these guys nurse their babies. They do it upright, so if you're watching from a boat, it looks like a human woman holding a child while floating in the sea. Add long, flipper-like arms and a tail that tapers like the classic mermaid fin, and the illusion becomes downright spooky. Ancient cave paintings and oral traditions from Malaysia and Papua New Guinea depict sea women that match these guys' anatomy almost exactly. There's even evidence that early sailors created fertility charms modeled after them, thinking they'd witnessed a sacred being. Turns out mermaids might have had tusks and whiskers this whole time. It has the body of an eel, the head of a dragon, and teeth like a medieval torture device. Meet the frilled shark, one of the most bizarre and ancient creatures still swimming in the oceans today. This deep-sea predator can grow over 6 feet long and really hasn't changed much in over 80 million years. When it surfaces, which is rare, it sends shivers down the spine. Its gaping jaws are filled with over 300 needle-like teeth arranged in rows, and its body moves in snake-like waves, exactly the kind of horror that fuels darker mermaid legends. In Celtic and Scandinavian folklore, there are stories of sea maidens with sharp teeth who lured fishermen to their deaths. Japanese Ningyo tales describe mermaids with a grotesque face and a body like a serpent. Many of these descriptions match the frilled shark far more closely than the romanticized Disney version that we're used to. It's the kind of creature that makes you wonder if sailors are seeing mermaids or monsters. You're floating in calm waters when suddenly a massive silver ribbon glides beneath your boat. It's over 30 feet long, has glowing fins, and moves like it's dancing. That's not your imagination. That's an oarfish. These rare deep-sea dwellers are the longest bony fish in the ocean and live thousands of feet below the surface. But when they're sick or dying, they float upward, and that's when humans get a glimpse. Ancient sightings of sea serpents off the coasts of Norway, Greece, and even the Pacific Islands often describe shimmering finned creatures with a crown-like head. That matches the oarfish almost perfectly. In Japanese folklore, oarfish are known as messengers from the sea god's palace, and their appearance is believed to predict earthquakes. Some Pacific Island legends also talk about sea queens or glowing maidens who rise before disaster. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you see the oarfish in motion, it's easy to understand how one fish could launch 1,000 mermaid stories. Alright, so technically not a sea creature, but stick with me, the axolotl might be one of the strangest and most mythical animals on Earth. Found only in the ancient lakes and canals of Mexico, these little amphibians have gills like feathery crowns, wide eyes, and permanently smiling faces. They also have the rare ability to regenerate entire limbs and even parts parts of their brain. To the Aztecs, the axolotl wasn't just an animal, it was a god. They believed it was the transformation of Xolotl, the twin brother of Quetzalcoatl, who turned himself into a water creature to escape sacrifice. The word axolotl even translates to water dog or water spirit. In Mesoamerican mermaid folklore, there are stories of guild women who live in sacred lakes and healed the sick. It's easy to imagine a culture encountering a glowing, smiling, regenerating water creature and building entire legends around it. In fact, many locals still believe axolotls bring luck and that harming one invites a curse. That's a lot of weight for one little smiling amphibian.
Two fishermen off Gran Canaria got the surprise of their lives when they came face to face with one of the ocean's weirdest predators, a goblin shark. Now, the thing is, these sharks are found way deep below the surface, but this one turned up while Marcos Hernandez and Ramon Santana were fishing. When it came up, we had no idea what it was, Marcos said. At first we thought it was a swordfish because of the snout, but then we realized it wasn't. It had leathery skin, and after looking online, we understood what it really was." End quote. The shark even showed off its signature party trick, where its jaw juts out. After confirming it was a goblin shark, they released it back into the water. This is the first confirmed sighting of the species in these waters. Goblin sharks are often called living fossils because they've barely changed in over 100 million years. They're rarely seen alive, let alone at these depths. Big fin squid are insanely rare. So rare that most deep sea explorers will just go their whole careers without seeing one. Big fin squid were first caught on camera in September of 1988 off northern Brazil, nearly 4,735 meters down, which is over 15,000 feet. They've got these crazy long skinny arms and big fins that give them this totally alien look. They really do look like something from another planet, and yes, those are arms, not tentacles. Big fins have 4 normal arms and 2 specialized feeding tentacles, but arms stretch so ridiculously long, sometimes as long as their whole body, it's easy to mistake them for tentacles. In 1992, a submersible spotted 2 off the coast of West Africa, and in 2000, an ROV in the Gulf of Mexico filmed one estimated at 7 meters long. More recently, an NOAA submersible captured a big fin in November of 2021 off Florida at nearly 2,400 meters deep. Some of them probably live over 6,000 meters down, which is basically the bottom of the sea. Scientists still don't fully understand how they live down there, but each rare sighting gives them an incredible peek at one of the strangest, most mysterious creatures in the ocean. The smooth-toothed black-tipped shark was thought to be extinct over 100 years ago, until it was rediscovered in 2008 at a fish market in Kuwait. The first specimen was caught back in 1902 by naturalist Wilhelm Hein in Yemen and sent to the Vienna Museum along with other animals and plants, and for decades this thing went mostly unnoticed. Then in 1985, scientist Jack Garrick examined that old specimen and he identified it as a new species. Since no other specimens had been seen, scientists assumed it might be extinct, and some even questioned whether it was a valid species at all. But then in 2008, during a research expedition, the smooth-toothed blacktip appeared at Kuwait's sharkfish market. These sharks are relatively small, growing up to 4 feet long with a greenish-colored body. They seem to prefer shallow waters and feed mainly on small, bony fish. Not much else is known about them, but the smooth-toothed blacktip is currently listed as vulnerable on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of threatened species. The Shoshone pupfish is a tiny fish that lives in the middle of the desert, in small springs and drainage areas around Shoshone Springs, California. Scientists thought it had gone extinct by 1969, but in 1986, it was rediscovered hiding in a drainage ditch that had been covered in thick cattails. The population was so small at the time that almost all the fish were collected and sent to universities for breeding programs, just to make sure the species didn't disappear completely. These fish are built to survive extreme conditions. They can handle water temperatures from freezing all the way up to 44 degrees Celsius or 111 degrees Fahrenheit. They grow up fast as well, reaching sexual maturity in just 4 to 6 weeks. The coelacanth is a fish that scientists thought had been gone for 66 million years, basically since the time of the dinosaurs. But then in 1938, a fisherman off South Africa hauled one up and brought it to Marjorie Courtney Latimer, a museum curator. She didn't totally know what she had at first, but after calling in scientist J.L.B. Smith, it was confirmed that this fish, known only from fossils, was actually still a living species. A species that became known as the quintessential living fossil. Coelacanths live in the deep sea, usually between 150 and 700 meters down, or about 490 and 2,300 feet. They've got these weird lobed fins and a tail unlike anything you'd normally see on a fish, which is why scientists think they're kind of like this bridge, a missing link between fish and the first land animals. That's how long these things have been around. Since that first discovery, another species, known as the Indonesian coelacanth, was spotted off Indonesia in 1997. The vaquita is a tiny porpoise living in the northern part of Mexico's Gulf of California. It's basically the rarest marine mammal on Earth. As of 2025, there are fewer than 10 left. They're small, only about 5 feet long. They have dark rings around their eyes. They stick to shallow, murky waters, so that makes spotting them harder. The biggest danger for these things isn't natural predators, it's us. Fishermen set nets to catch another endangered fish called the totaba, and vaquitas get accidentally trapped in them. These other fish they're trying to catch are highly prized, especially its swim bladders, so these nets keep being used even though they're deadly for these porpoises. Conservation teams are patrolling their habitats quite often. They remove nets, they use underwater microphones to try and track them, but just aren't enough resources to fully protect them. So that's a fun note to end on.